Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today I have another new knife to check out for you guys. This is one that I've been carrying for a few days now, and I've been very impressed with it, and it's a really unique knife, and in the year of the button lock, with all these new button locks that everyone's ranting and raving about, we have a liner lock that's worth paying attention to, and this one here is none other than the Vosteed Nightshade. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. Now, let's take a look at some overall specs on this very unique knife right here. We have an overall length of 7.48 inches, with a blade length coming in at 3.26 inches, and a blade width of 1.19 inches. The blade thickness on this guy is 118 thousandths, with a blade material of M390, and the blade style is somewhat of a fusion kukri / shilling cutter. That is what was listed on the description of this knife on the website. I will go into a little more detail when we get to the overall blade review portion of this review. And we have a full flat grind, a handle length coming in at 4.22 inches, and a handle thickness at 527 thousandths, with a handle width of 890 thousandths. Now, the handle material on this version right here is a copper bolster with a micarta. It's kind of a polished black micarta. A lot to say about this when we get to the handle portion of this review. And there's also a second option that is actually a brass bolster with a black G10 liner. Or not liner, but scale. Yeah, scale. That's what we want to go with. We also have a liner lock locking mechanism and a user of a right hand only tip-up carry. Weight coming in at 4.16 ounces on this guy, and a price, you know, factoring everything into this, $129 for this guy, I do find to be rather reasonable. No real issue there. M390, micarta, copper, yeah, I mean, that's not too bad. That's pretty. I don't think you're getting the greatest deal in the world, but by no means do I think you're overpaying. I think this is a pretty solid offering for $129. Let's take a look at some overall size comparisons. Kind of weird to do some size comparison with this knife because it's kind of like a boomerang. But nonetheless, I don't have a lot of other boomerang knives, but I have a Hogue Deca, and I also have a Benchmade Bug Out that I think at the end of the day gives you a decent idea of the size. Different knives, obviously, very different. But in terms of overall length, very close. Very, very close. Following that line there. Right on par with both of these from tip to tip to tip. Yeah, there you go. Got two other ones to throw on the table here that I think will also help you guys out. One more good old American-made classic, the Para 3. And then also we have the Civivi Elementum. You kind of have to throw it in there when you can because everybody knows it. Of course, it's a little bigger than the Elementum, and it's surprisingly bigger than the Para 3. And the Para 3, it's very similar to the Para 2, just that that good bubbly handle, but it's surprisingly bigger. So yeah, definitely more along the lines of the Deca and the Bug Out in terms of overall length. But nonetheless, a good sized knife, and one that really grabbed my attention. One that when I originally saw the picture of this thing, I thought, you know what, no lie, this is an ugly knife. But then my buddy Miller Knife Works, if you guys haven't heard of him, look him up on Instagram. Hell of a good dude. Pretty talented knife maker in his own right. Got some things in the works. But, Miller Knife Works said, hey, check this out. You won't regret it. So I thought, you know what, I'm always looking for new content, but it's not very often that I'll be honest with you guys. You guys probably know this. At the end of the day, when it comes to knives, I get a lot of knives sent to me for review, or I have options or opportunities to pick up knives at a lesser cost, or someone sends them in to me. I have a lot of great people helping support this channel, but I bought this knife with 100% my own money. So, I didn't know anyone at Vosteed. Have never really been in any communication, but I thought, you know what, this is a really unique knife, and I think it might be something you guys want to know about. And if it's good, I'll let you know. If it's bad, I'll let you know. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it, but at the end of the day, I did spend my own money on it. I think that says something. I don't always have $100+ to throw on knives. I'm a very average Joe, but I wanted to check this out, and I'm glad I did because it's an extremely unique knife. The whole kukri shilling cutter type of blade. So let me try and explain this to you in the most layman's terms possible. The Fusion Kukri style blade had somewhat of a recurve. The Fusion Kukri / shilling cutter. They're kind of the similar knives. It's a mishmash of those two blades. At the end of the day, the design was to have the blade at a more aggressive angle to where the blade was facing forward. So when you had it in hand, it was already facing down. So when you went to go make those cuts, you're kind of like unintentionally, but also just making a more aggressive cut and push into the material to help slice through the object better. And the aggressive angle of the blade does work. It works very well. And while it doesn't look like the most traditional EDC knife, I've got to say, after a few days of carrying this, I'm impressed. It cuts through cardboard very, very well with an edge reading coming in at 17 thousandths and paired with a full flat grind. It performs extremely well. You have some really nice jimping here leading into a crown spine that I really, really like. Some people like to have more of an acute angle on their spines to, strike a ferro rod or something. But at the end of the day, with most of my EDC knives, I'm not going to go on a camping trip. If I don't need to strike a ferro rod, I don't need that acute angle. I would actually prefer that there be some crowning on the spine. I think it just looks really good. It adds a little character, a little bit of class to the knife. I would definitely prefer most of my knives look a little classier than they would rugged outdoorsy. I like both of them. I use both of them. But at the end of the day, if I had to pick one, I do prefer the crown spine. Just really like that quality in a blade. Because it doesn't really hinder the cutting performance either way, but it just adds a different little element of aesthetic to the knife. And I really do appreciate that. But that full flat grind on such a wide blade and 17 thousandths bend edge, man, this is just a very nice, slicey, useful blade. It's really hard to go wrong with this. Even though it may look weird, and it may look like when you're holding it in hand, it is so aggressively, facing forward. It just really works. Whether you're opening up chips or making a draw cut or doing anything you would do or just cutting through cardboard, it works very, very well. You have some jimping on this flipper tab that is ridiculously perfect in my opinion. Some people may find this too aggressive, but at the end of the day, wherever you put your finger on this flipper tab, because it goes all the way from the top to the bottom, you're going to catch that jimping. It's going to bite your finger. It's going to kick the blade out. I really like that. I've been complaining and begging for it for so long. There's so many knives that really, in my opinion, should have this type of jimping. They don't. They're still good knives, but at the end of the day, I'm really glad this knife has that jimping. Now, going into the handle and ergos. The ergos are just extremely solid on this knife. I'm not going to say they're hand-hugging, but they feel so good. The only thing that I would kind of call out on these ergos is the clip, and it's just because it's not bad, it's just not great. It's just kind of middle of the road. And I've come to realize throughout my, reviewing career of folding knives, whatever you want to call it, I'm pretty critical of pocket clips. You guys probably know that by now. So, take that with maybe a grain of salt. I still really like the knife overall. If there was one thing, like I said, if there's one thing I'm picking apart on the ergos, it would be this clip. But it's not like as bad as the Civivi clip where I just hate it. I still actually like it. I don't know. It's just not. It's not on that great level. It's just a good level. It's kind of acceptable, but it's not something to where I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, love this clip. But at the end of the day, it still looks pretty good. I'm glad it's not satin. You guys know I hate satin clips. Really glad it's not satin. It's actually kind of a dark sand wash, which looks good because it goes really well with these amazing polished micarta scales. I want to say something about polished micarta. A lot of people think it's too slick. I heavily disagree with that notion that polished micarta is too slick. To me, I get a good level of tackiness. It's kind of like a nice football that's wet. You get the leather gets that tackiness to it, and that's what I get from this. I have no issue with the grip on these polished micarta scales. I love them. I think they're awesome. Now, you obviously have no grip up here on the copper bolsters, but you don't really need it at the end of the day because you have good grip on the polished micarta, and then you also have a very nice pinch grip area with the jimping on the spine of this blade, as well as the jimping on the flipper tab, which kind of pushes your index finger up there. You get your thumb on the jimping on the back, and you have a very, very solid grip. Zero concern about this knife getting loose at all in my hand. Very, very useful, very functional grip, and one that can provide a lot of very good work. Now, would this jimping and this flipper tab maybe cause a little irritation if you're doing some real heavy cutting over and over and over? It probably would, in all honesty. It could, and it probably would, but again, like I said, guys, I don't, if I have a lot of crazy, ridiculous cutting to do repetitive over and over and over, I'm going to get the proper knife for that. I'm talking about just your general EDC knife. If I got to cut open some cardboard, break it down real quick, open a letter, open a bag of something, this, that, or the other, that's what I'm going to use an EDC knife for. If I have a task that I'm going to do over and over and I know it's coming, I'm probably not going to use a knife like this. I'm probably going to use something better suited for it. Now that this knife isn't a good, a good knife, it just may not be the best knife for something to do over and over and over in a heavy, industrial setting. And I think that goes without saying, but I don't know. Everyone has their own thoughts and ideas. But at the end of the day, the ergos on this are definitely acceptable. The qualities of the handle are something I really appreciate. The polished leather's good. It pairs well with the copper. That dark sandwash blade or dark sandwash clip looks good. And you have a very solid offering with the handle and excellent access to that liner lock, which gives you a very solid lockup. And when you break that lock, the blade just really shakes shut very easily. Now, granted, you have kind of a bigger blade, and the actual blade itself is already kind of leaning forward. So when you break it, it naturally kind of falls. And that easy shake shut is very nice. But then the action beyond that is still really, really good. It's a nice, crisp detent that kicks that blade out. It has a really good flipper design in general. The flipper is kind of, leaning down a little, but it's still sticking out. It's the perfect flipper for a push button or light switch. Now, you guys know me. I prefer that push button because it really flips the blade out of there. And that's like steam or, from me holding it in my warm hands right now. But you can light switch it and it's just as good. But man, oh man, I love that push button action. Flies right out of there and it easily shakes shut. At the end of the day, guys, this is a very surprising and very satisfying knife. It's one that in the year of the button locks, when you got all these knives from the Altus, from the original, and everything before and after that, great options, but it's so nice and so pleasing to have a good old liner lock that still makes me happy. So I really do appreciate that about this knife. It's one that I plan on carrying around for quite a while, and I tell you what, this may sneak its way into a position somewhere in the Knife of the Year awards at the end of the year, because it really is such a unique offering, such a versatile blade with good enough ergos. Don't sleep on this. Don't sleep on this. For the materials and the action and the quality at $129, it is definitely one I would recommend, and the one that I think a lot of people would enjoy, but it's one that you kind of have to know about. Vosteed's a little quiet, but definitely worth checking out. Let me know if you guys have checked this one out. Let me know if you plan on checking it out. I really hope you guys enjoyed this review. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.